Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is episode 143 of the Meet the Farmers podcast, and I'm your host, Ben Eagle. Today on the show, we're talking about a cookbook with a difference that puts farmers and farming at its heart. For the Love of the Land is the brainchild of Jenny Jefferies and is published by Meze Publishing. The book profiles 40 farmers from up and down the country, set alongside some of their favorite recipes and illustrated with really wonderful photography and portraits. The stories contained within its pages are diverse and inspiring. And when looking through the book, it was really great actually to see some former Meet the Farmers guests. Jenny is a cookery author from South Cambridgeshire. She has family farming links with her husband, John, being an arable farmer. And this was partly the inspiration for putting together this fantastic book. It came out in 2020, so I'm a little late off the blocks with promoting it, but it is still available. So please do, if you haven't already seen it, please search for it and check it out. Really, really recommend. I should also say that Jenny has also published a second book along similar lines called For the Love of the Sea, which I'm sure we'll talk about as well. Jenny, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. What a lovely introduction.
Oh, well, what a wonderful book. Can you, I gave you a brief introduction there, but can you introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm Jenny Jefferies and I'm a farmer's wife and a mother to two beautiful children, Heidi, who's 6, and Florence, who's nearly 4.
Yeah, let's get them in there.
Yeah, they won't forgive me if I don't mention them. And I live in a family-run farm here in South Cambridgeshire in a little village called Little Gransden. And we live on a 750-acre arable farm with a private airfield. And we actually got a grant from the EU about 11 years ago to create and develop some luxury self-catering cottages from disused farm buildings, wow, which I market. So that's my main job, which is to market the Fullers Hill cottages that we have here. So when I'm not mothering and when I'm not marketing, I am compiling story cookbooks that celebrate British harvest, which I'm really proud of. Fantastic. So it's become more of a hobby. It's something that I do in the evenings and when I don't have much time elsewhere. And it's a real privilege to be in a position to do this. And yeah, both books have fortunately been received really enthusiastically and really great, which is something I'm really proud of.
Brilliant. Tell us about your part of Cambridgeshire. Are you from Cambridgeshire?
No, I'm from a little urban town called Radlett in Hertfordshire, where they've got pavements and restaurants and amenities on your doorstep.
That's where my grandfather grew up randomly.
Really? Yeah. Oh my goodness, small world. Yeah, it's really lovely, but very different to where we live now. And I think becoming a farmer's wife definitely has its unique challenges and was definitely a steep learning curve, moving from being a self-confessed urbanite to a sort of country lass now. Very different, but very lovely. I wouldn't have it any other way.
How did you meet John? And also, I mean, how did you find that, I suppose, transition into farming life?
Yeah, so I don't come from a farming background at all. And John and I were introduced by a mutual friend of ours who I used to go salsa dancing with, and her partner used to work on the farm. And so we were introduced, we went on a blind date. And we decided to go traveling together. We hired motorbikes and rode around Chile and Argentina together. And then we got married, and the rest is history. So yeah, quite a whirlwind, but really lovely.
And what about your relationship with cooking? When did you first get into cooking?
So I wouldn't say that I'm really into cooking. I'm very good at warming things up for my children. and I'm a very enthusiastic home cook, but I certainly wouldn't call myself or describe myself as a chef or a cook. But I think the love of food came from my father, who really loves food and entertaining. I mean, obviously when my father was working, my mother was bringing me and my brother and I up whilst we were at school and did all the cooking then. But my mother's sister lived about 2 hours away, and with her children, they used to take it in turns to sort of go to each other's houses on Sundays. And my father and his brother-in-law would be in the kitchen cooking up all this food. And I remember him coming out into the dining room with these plates of salmon fillets and roast beef and all the trimming. Fantastic. And just the whole feeling of food was very warming and very comforting, with a lot of love and a lot of congregation and a real love and respect for the food. And so I'd always considered myself to be a foodie from that extent. But when I met John and saw my first ever harvest in the summer of 2013, I realised that I wasn't a foodie, because I think for one to really enjoy food, one has to really understand how it's produced. And I didn't have a clue up until then about where our food came from.
So why did you want to put this particular book together? And this was your first one, was it, for the love of the land? And you have, I mean, I love this format. You could have, say, profiled the farmer, then, but in essence, put any recipe connected in some way with them. But it's very much, it's almost a compilation by the farmers themselves. So the recipes have a direct connection with them.
Yeah, definitely. And 9 times out of 10, all the recipes showcase the produce that the farmer is producing. And I felt that was really important. And a lot of the recipes are recipes handed down from generations within the farming family. And
Yeah,
I really
I love
want
that.
to emphasize on the independent, smaller family farms, which I think are really important to preserve, because there's a real danger of losing them at this sort of real interesting and challenging time in agriculture generally. So that was really important to me. You know, someone like my husband, I really had a thirst to share his story. And it was when I was weaning my eldest daughter, who was 6 months at the time. I had a busy revolving kitchen door, trying to feed her, trying to feed my husband, who was going up and down the tractor all day,
Yep.
and thinking, what on earth do I feed my family? And that was when the idea of the cookbook came about. And I thought to share my husband's story in hopefully an accessible and an entertaining way, such as a cookbook. That would be really interesting, and a lovely way of doing it.
Okay. And what about the process of putting it together? Because, well, there's 40 farmers in it from
Yeah.
all over the UK. I have to say, speaking personally, it's been really, really useful, because just watch this space, any farmers who are in there, because I will be coming knocking soon.
Fantastic. That's a great source. It's a great source of information. And I love the way it just makes all these different connections with people. That's really lovely, actually. So yeah, really nice. So the book came about, the process all started when my husband and I went for dinner at a hotel where I used to work at, and where we eventually got married, St Michael's Manor in St Albans. And we sat down and had a list. We started writing a list of all the different produce from all the different regions of all the different countries within the UK. So lamb from Wales, apples from Ireland or Northern Ireland or whatever. And so that was a good place to start with the produce, because I felt that was probably the most important thing. And then all from the produce became all the stories and the awards and the profiles. And actually, my husband John is a farming director of Camgrain, and Minette Batters was going to be at a meeting that he was going to be attending. Bearing in mind there wasn't a book at all, just an idea. I wrote her a letter asking her if she would be interested in writing the foreword to the book, which is quite bold. And she came back with a resounding yes.
Oh, good old Minette.
Yeah, absolutely indebted to her and beyond grateful for her involvement at such an early stage in the whole process, because she, you know, when I emailed out to all the farmers and then followed it up with a phone call, you know, to mention her and to have her involvement really added some extra credibility and gravitas to the whole project. And I think people took me seriously. And 9 times out of 10, all the farmers I spoke to were really enthusiastic and really on board with it straight away, because they could see that it was a real celebration of British farming. And I think a lot of them became quite tired of the press and the bad rap that they sort of usually quite commonly get. So for someone to come along and say, look, this is what I want to do. I want to really celebrate our food and celebrate our farmers. Would you be interested? And yeah, they were really on board with it. And so I'm very grateful to both Minette Batters and the farmers, definitely.
I'm interested in those phone calls that you were having with them. Did you get a good flavour? Because I see this book as a really good snapshot, actually. You mentioned actually the phrase social history in it early on, and I think that's bang on, that this is actually a really good document in itself of 40 British farmers as of today.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's come from the farmers themselves. You know, it's their words that are so evocative and really illustrate the tradition, heritage and culture of the agricultural community, which I think is so important now more than ever to really preserve. And I think it's really important because they're the backbone of our country. They really are. and for you to describe it as social history as well, and to echo those same sentiments that I had, I think it's really lovely and really good to hear. So thank you very much.
Oh. What's your favourite recipe? Put you on the spot.
Yeah, all of them are. But I do have a few favourites that I go back time and time again, which I bake or cook for my children. Is the lemon drizzle and blueberry cake by the Brothers Farm in Dorset. My husband's recipe, which is a fireball steak, which is a cooking method that we both saw when we were on honeymoon in Botswana. So those are that's quite special. And I think the photographer, we had these like amazing beef steaks, and John just put them directly on the charcoal on the fire, and he was a bit worried about what was going to happen. You know, these really expensive, beautiful, really good, high quality steak, and putting them straight on the fire. But it's beautiful. It's really lovely. What's your favourite recipe?
My favourite. Well, I was going to say, I was mentioning earlier on some that I'm definitely going to be cooking this weekend. Definitely Richard's rice pudding.
Yes.
That is bang on there. Richard Hurst. And there was a pork recipe somewhere. Where is it?
Was that the Saxby?
That's the one.
No pork.
Katie Lowe's one.
Oh yes, yeah.
Nice, and I was going to say,
nice family-friendly recipe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but no, there's loads in there.
Yeah, there's lots of really accessible recipes in there. But there's obviously some more challenging ones as well to suit such a different extremities of different abilities in cooking in the kitchen. So yeah, hopefully there's something there for everybody.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be. Again, go and check it out, guys. You mentioned earlier on that clearly it is, let's say a challenging time at the moment for multiple reasons. As a Cambridgeshire arable family farm, as a family, I'm just interested in sort of your view on the ground as sort of living through those challenges and sort of confidence levels for the future.
So there's lots of different challenges, especially coming out the other side of the pandemic. I think that's really changed people's perceptions of British farming. People are more aware of what they do and what we're all about. And then certainly with the delicate politics that are happening at the moment, there are really startling challenges that all farmers are experiencing at the moment, especially pig farmers, with the cost of pig feed going up and the culling of about 40,000 healthy pigs. I think there has to be more transparency in the supply chain and a greater understanding from the general public about the producer-consumer story, hence the books as well. I think my main message to farmers is don't panic, and just hopefully, things will get better. I think there has to be greater support from the general public and greater awareness from the general public. And I don't think it helps when you have so much unnecessary confrontation from sort of militant vegans or specific food groups. This is what really annoys me, and one of my pet hates is that whatever diet you choose to be, whether you're a vegan, vegetarian, omnivore, carnivore, flexitarian, pescatarian, or whatever, aren't we really lucky that at the end of the day, we have this massive array of choice of food and produce, and it doesn't matter what diet you have, that's your own choice. And I think the main message is to be kind. And I know that's said a lot and it can be a little bit emptiness, but I think I really mean that. And I just don't understand the unnecessary confrontation between these food groups, and just leave farmers alone just to get on with it. And we should be really grateful for where our food comes from, because there are 864 million people in the world who are currently malnourished and don't have enough food to eat. 8.4 million people in our own country who don't have enough food to eat. That's the equivalent of the population of London, which is just an astronomical many number of people who are really struggling. And with the sort of contentious issues such as food waste and food distribution, and you've got all this confrontation going on, it just seems completely ridiculous.
So your second book, which followed on very nicely from this, was For the Love of the Sea. Again, how did that one come about?
So I was busy on holiday with my two children, and John was actually busy harvesting, but we have our annual holiday to Southwold, and we were eating fish and chips, and I was just really inspired by the sea. And Meze Publishing are brilliant. They're super lovely and talented and very creative. And they came up with the idea of For the Love of the Land. They came up with the name of the book.
Okay.
And it just seemed like a natural progression to do For the Love of the Sea. And I think when people think of harvest, they automatically think of agriculture. They don't think of harvest of the sea. Yep. So it just felt like a real wholesome progression to do For the Love of the Sea, really.
Okay. Are there any other books in the pipeline?
There are, yes. One
Can
of
you
the
talk about them?
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to. So yeah, really exciting. I mean, it seems like July is a really long time away, but I've got For the Love of the Land Part 2 coming out in July. So there'll be another 40 farmers doing amazing things and fantastic initiatives like regenerative agriculture, sustainability, food provenance, community spirit, and really coming together. And yeah, there'll be another book, and then hopefully For the Love of the Sea 2 will be published in April next year. So
Wow.
yeah, really exciting actually. I'm hoping that it will reach out to a bigger audience and the fishing community, which is also really important to me. I think when you publish a book, there's a certain amount of vulnerability you have when you put something out there into the big wide world. You're quite nervous and feel quite vulnerable about it. So I think more than anything, I just hope people like it.
Yeah. So how did that actually feel on publishing day from the first book?
Oh, it's a mixture of emotions, definitely excitement, and just relief, and also gratitude to the publisher and all the team who are heavily involved with the book, because it's not just me. You know, there's a fantastic team of people, the designer, the publisher, the sales and marketing PR team, and the photographers, and of course all the farmers and all the fishermen. So yeah, it's a fantastic day. And actually we didn't get to do a book launch for the first two books because of
Of
COVID.
course.
So I'm planning on a big, massive party to celebrate British farming on the farm. I think we'll have a hog roast and
Oh,
invite all the
fantastic.
contributors to the books. So yeah, you'll have to come
Oh,
along.
brilliant. What a party. That sounds fantastic. That'd be
Yeah, you'll have to come
wonderful.
along.
Oh, thank you. Won't turn an invite down like that.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I suppose one final question as well, because I think what you do very, very, very well, this just as a project generally, this is all about connecting. We talk a lot in farming circles of connecting with the public, but you generally do this very well in a tangible way. What do you think is the perception of people from outside of farming and farmers? And of course, you yourself as well weren't involved in farming, and then you came into into an agricultural family.
Yeah, great question. I think there's real two extremities. There's someone like me, sorry, forgive the self-indulgence for a moment, but someone like me who is completely ignorant about food provenance, doesn't have a clue about farming or where our food comes from. And then there are people who really do have an idea about it and really respectful. And then you have the other side where people aren't so respectful. So I think the perception is a real mixture. And I think it's really difficult to sort of reach out to everybody.
So, if you have a message for the public, what would it be?
My main message to the public would be to go out there and really support your food producers, whether they be farmers or fishermen. Go out there and buy local, buy sustainably, buy seasonally, and above all, to buy British. Look out for the Red Tractor logo in supermarkets, the MSC Blue Fish label, and really go to your farmers markets, your farm shops, your delicatessens, your bakeries, your butchers, your fishmongers. There's just so many places that you can go to and do your thing and help support British farming and British fishing.
And finally, Jenny Jefferies, a message for farmers.
Well, I know on social media that I think farmers get a bit tired of this sort of message, but I think it's really just to simply say thank you.
I like that. That's, to be honest, it's the best message and probably be the one that's most appreciated. We will leave it there. Thank you so much, Jenny, for coming on the show. And again, a message from me to listeners: please do go and buy the book. It's called For the Love of the Land. It's been out for ages, but it's still available. Loads and loads of amazing recipes and profiles of fantastic farmers in there. So go and check that out. Next time on the show, I will be joined by Warwickshire mixed farmer Charlie Beattie. So I hope you can join me then. But until then, have a great week.